everyone. It is Tony. I am back with another amazing episode of Women In, and I'm excited for you to meet my guest today. But before you hear about my guest, let's talk about what you're listening to. Women In is a podcast that celebrates women and the individuals in their lives who are lifting them up. You are going to hear from all kinds of super cool people in my life and share their stories to inspire others to support all the extraordinary women around them. This is a space to be disruptive, forward-thinking, and change agents for humankind. It is uncensored, fun, and curiosity-driven. This is what I'm passionate about, breaking down barriers for my kids' generation. It's equal parts about my guests and the places we came into each other's lives, whether it be the Kalamazoo Wings, Mindfulness Elevated, Tony Will Coaching, or you happen to be in my family and friends circle. I'm so excited to introduce you to my guest today. Hannah Sorkin is the CEO and co-founder of Playmaker Software, a sports tech company transforming the way sports sponsorships are managed through automation and proactive tooling. Before launching Playmaker, Hannah was on the sports partnership team for Anheuser-Busch, where she negotiated and executed deals across leagues, teams, and athletes for AB's iconic brand portfolio. She later joined AB's revenue management and sales intelligence team, ultimately leading strategy across 12 states and DC to drive $2 billion in annual revenue. Her experience on both partnerships and revenue sides of the business laid the foundation for solving problems Playmaker now addresses. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, how weird is it when your bio is read to you out loud in person?
Well, it's still a little weird, but I thought you delivered it well, so thank you.
I'm just reading, so everyone knows I don't memorize any of that. But I'm impressed. 2 billion. That's a big number from Anheuser-Busch. So we'll get into that later. But and sales in general, because I'm really passionate about sales in a positive way. But let's start with where I start with all my podcast guests is, how did we meet? It's such a fun little story, and I love to share always how I meet the people that come into my life.
Yes. Okay. So we met at the National Sports Forum, which is an annual event that brings together different sports organizations, different tech companies in that ecosystem, different brands, to have a 3-day session to like network, get to know each other, go to very like educational panels and discussions led by colleagues. And while we were there, there was a woman event in the evening that was to celebrate women in sports business. And while during that event, you actually had a live podcast recording with Nicolette.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting there and I was so impressed by Nicolette, who's also an entrepreneur story, and everything that you've been doing with Women In, your coaching, and the Kalamazoo Wings. So I introduced myself afterwards and we just started talking, and you were very nice. One thing I would like to note is I went to the National Sports Forum about 5 years ago for the first time. And when I was on the AB Sports Partnerships team, and then I went again this past year, so like 5 years later, and I was so happy to see how many more like women were at the event, even compared to just 5 years ago. And I think it speaks volumes to one, just like the industry changing and more people coming into it, but also Ron Seaver, who's the founder of National Sports Forum, his ability to make such a fun, inclusive community with the National Sports Forum to get more people to come and really be part of it. So that it was also, for me, it was fun, like, you know, seeing the difference and being a woman in sports and now all of a sudden having this big community.
I love hearing that. There's so much I'm going to dig into in that one beautiful answer, because so I've been going to the sports forum, the National Sports Forum, for a decade. And I remember the first time I went, because I love learning. And I remember the first time I went, I wasn't really, I wasn't in this space of looking at my gender being a role in what I do day to day. I was trying to figure out the Kalamazoo Wings at the time. I was new into sports, and I didn't ever think I'd work in sports, and I ended up here on accident. And so when I came in the first year, I didn't notice. I thought, what a great conference. The second year, I was like, oh, there's a lot of white dudes here, and there's a lot of white men giving the talks. And I'm like, this is annoying. And don't get me wrong, I love men, and I talk about this several times. I've been married to three of them, and I got it right the third time. But I was like, we need more women. I know women in sports. I'm one of them. There's other people in my life in just the league I work in, and so that's kind of it was born from that. So fast forward years later, Ron reached out to me to be on the steering committee. And I was like, heck yeah, I will, because been doing some speaking in women in sports for breakout sessions. But he was like, Tony, I want to bring it to the main stage and I want you to moderate it. And that was not this year, but last year. And I was so proud of that because it was the first time ever in 30 years they had an all woman panel ever. And so to hear from someone like you who came 5 years ago and then we ran into each other this year, and the other thing I want to point out, you came up to me and introduced yourself, and then you followed up with me and said, Tony, I want to be on the podcast, I want to be connected with you. I can't tell you, I extend this offer to really anyone that comes into my sphere because I want to lift women up, and you are like the only woman that reached out to me,
Oh,
so kudos to you.
thank you. Thank you. And thank you for extending the offer.
Well, doesn't it surprise you just by looking at your face like that? So if you're not watching this and you're listening to us, is that surprising? Is that surprising that people don't reach out?
I think so. I think a lot about I think self-advocacy is so important where a lot of times sometimes I think people think that maybe someone else is going to help bring them up, but someone else, like, part of the reason that I wanted to be on this podcast is because I very much respect how you've created a platform for women to tell their story and talk about what they're building, what they're passionate about. Um, and I want to be part of that. But I was under no assumption that if you extend the offer that you would be the one following up with me. That if you laid out this opportunity, it's kind of on me to go and take it. And I guess that's just kind of how I'm hardwired. Where like if an opportunity presents it, like no one's going to always hand it to you. You always have to like take it when the opportunity is in front of you. So I guess I'm just surprised that more people don't follow up.
I know. And it's not, listen, I think there's a lot of reasons that it goes into that people are don't like public speaking or are afraid they're not going to know what to say, don't want to be recorded, whatever. And so it's nothing, I never take it personally, but I always think, especially for those of us who are in sales. And by the way, everyone, I talk about this, everyone's in sales, whether you have a sales job or not, you are selling. We're always selling. And I teach that in some of the breakout sessions or panels or keynotes I give, is that we're always selling, and sales isn't a dirty word. And actually, it's the title of some of my work that I do. But I love that you took that initiative, and I love the advice you just gave there, which is I'm not waiting for someone to come to me and pull me along. I'm going to go make it happen. And even if you're like, I don't, you could have said to yourself, did Tony really mean that? I don't know, but I'm going to ask. And, and I am, one of my core values is authenticity. So I would never extend something if I didn't mean it. And so I love that you took that. And that doesn't surprise me after reading your bio, because you have been very successful in sales. In your own career with Anheuser-Busch. So I want to talk about that a little bit. What is your how did you get into sales, and what is your mindset around sales? Because clearly you don't think sales is a dirty word. So I want to hear about that.
No, no, and this is kind of funny because so at Anheuser-Busch, I've never often been in like this like pure selling. Whereas my career at Anheuser-Busch is I've done so many things. So I'll start in that, but Anheuser-Busch has always given me an opportunity to branch out and learn new skills and experience a new part of the business. That's kind of context for about this like roller coaster of a career there. So when I first joined AB, I had the opportunity to be part of it's called GMT, so Global Management Trainee Program, where it's 10 months, and every couple months you move to a new state and learn a new area of the business. So I did everything from brewing beer in the LA brewery, followed by going to Eugene, Oregon, where I was going on sales routes with different sales reps. I went to St. Louis to learn more about regional sales and regional sales strategy. Then I went to North Dakota to work with our wholesalers. I was in Chicago, in New York, back in St. Louis. And it's through this program that I really start to understand not just about different aspects of our business and how it holistically comes together, but about who are all the people we're selling to across the US, and how do like different sales strategies or different beer types like change depending on your geographical location. And I absolutely loved that. It was such a cool, unique experience. And then out of that program, I joined the sports partnerships team at that time under Nick Kelly. And I was working on NFL, NHL, Bud Light led sports at that time. And it was in that role, then followed by working under Matt Davis for more Budweiser led sports, that I started realizing that one, I had the coolest job, definitely at the company, maybe in the world. I was bringing our brand strategies and messaging to life through like the passion point of sports. It was awesome. And I got to meet so many like inspiring, cool people. And but it was also in that role that I was like, okay, I'm starting to see some inefficiencies with the tech that supports this sports ecosystem, which I'm sure we'll get into later about Playmaker. But after a few years on that team, I went to my boss and I said, Matt, I have the coolest job ever. I love my job. I love my team. Our partners are great, but I want to better understand how the business is run. Like, how do we keep the lights on? And I requested to join the revenue management sales strategy group, to which he said, Hannah, no one in the history of any company ever has wanted to go from the sports team to the revenue management sales strategy group. I said, I'll be the first. I need to know, like, how do we grow market share? How do we drive revenue? It's just a skill set that right now I'm missing. So he helped me get there, and I had a wonderful manager, Laura Slater. And while I was in that role, I thought I'd do it for 2 years, learn the skills, hate it, and move on. But I ended up loving the data. I loved being able to see the reactions behind if we move these levers of distribution and price. How can we affect different sales, market share, revenue, and be able to more strategically think about the US business, and how can we position ourselves in order to continue to drive revenue growth while not like sacrificing market share. Um, and then it was through that role that I actually had the opportunity to go to the Northeast region, so 12 states plus DC, and lead the sales strategy group responsible for building out the plan, the strategy, and the targets to bring in that 2 billion of revenue annually. And during that's when I would like go into the field. So go out with our wholesalers, the sales reps, understand how is our product coming to life on shelves. And so I've sold beer before, but I've never sold enterprise sales. And I would not say I'm like a trained salesperson, but I've been having to learn how to do sales by founding my own company. So I've learned not to take things personally when I reach out and just don't get answers from people. At first, I was like, why aren't they responding? I'm like, no, Hannah, you haven't responded to cold emails in the past. So now I'm trying to be a lot better about responding to cold emails. But yeah, so it's just keep going at it, and don't take it personally. But that's kind of my AB career.
How many years were you there, Hannah?
About 6.5.
6.5 years. Okay. And you, okay, so and when did you graduate from college and
20,
where?
Princeton.
You were at Princeton. Okay. Wow, bravo. And you didn't put that in your bio. You should, girl. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is fantastic. And what year was it again? I'm sorry.
2018.
2018. Okay, so you are young and you are a go-getter. And I knew that the minute I met you. I was like, this one's got a fire in her belly. And when we were talking, I was like, she's a woman in tech too, which is, you are probably, I'm going to go out on a limb because I'm not a woman in tech, but a woman in sports. I know you're probably a minority, especially as a co-founder and creator in this space. So I was like, she's impressive. And I could tell by when I met you. So when you were going through your career, AB, and I have daughters that are close to your age, close-ish. My oldest is turning 23 this week. But what advice would you give someone that's 21, 22, 23 years old for navigating through what you did very early on in your career? And by the way, that global program that you went through where you're moving around, like how cool was that with Anheuser-Busch? So what advice would you give for advocating for yourself and speaking up in a way to say, I want more, I want to learn more?
Yeah, yeah. I would say don't be stressed to try and figure it all out. When you're 23, you have your whole life ahead of you. And one thing that I really loved about Anheuser-Busch and the reason I want to go work there was because of the meritocracy component, where it didn't matter your age or your background. What mattered is your work ethic and your results and the ability to try new things. So I say never stay in your comfort zone and understand when you're looking at different potential roles or jobs, there's probably never going to be anything that checks all of the boxes of what you want. However, think about what skills do I want to develop? And when you're looking at different potential jobs or roles within an organization, try and say, okay, what skills am I going to develop from here? Is it going to help um, curate, I guess, more help build things I don't currently have? Or is it going to just strengthen some of my skills? And try and choose roles based on that.
That's great advice. What did you study when you were at Princeton?
I studied public policy, international affairs with a minor in French. So, yeah, I would say it was very much how do we look at problems in a holistic manner, um, and choose different decisions based on the evidence we have in front of us. So I'd say a lot of public policy was out of looking at historicals, qualitative facts, quantitative facts, and being able to think holistically about different issues, which I loved.
So, did you see yourself when you were studying at Princeton and getting that degree that you would be working for a beer company?
No, no. I actually, fun fact, it feels like a lifetime ago, but I interned at the State Department in the Boston field office. And during that time, I was, this is definitely probably maybe a story for another time, but I was the last line of defense for His Holiness the Dalai Lama when he came to Boston. So that was a stressful but fun experience. Along with, I even did like I was doing this deep dive research on um, something. I can't speak really to it, but as part of that, I actually went like undercover one day and did like a stakeout.
Oh,
And
my,
that was the cool part. Most of the time I was like on the computer screen doing like a ton of like research and due diligence on items. But like there were a couple of like in the field items that were a lot of fun. But I did think I was going to be in government or foreign service officer for part of my college experience. But then again, I really loved with Anheuser-Busch the ability to move around to different areas of the business, learn different skills that you didn't previously have, but they believe if you're smart and capable and have that fire, like you will learn them and become overall just an absolute like Swiss Army knife. And again, the meritocracy, I really, really like that part.
wow. You need to put this in your bio, by the way. Princeton, and that you were the last line of defense for the Dalai Lama.
It is a fun fact.
My fun fact is that I've earned two Guinness World Records, but your fun fact is way cooler than mine.
What were your Guinness World Records?
So at the Kalamazoo Wings, we've earned two world records in 2019 for the largest lightsaber battle. And we're in the book.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? And then,
That's really cool.
yeah, then this last fall in October 24, we, at our 50th anniversary home opener, we earned the Guinness World Record for most waving foam fingers.
How many?
So what is the record? We did like 4,500 something, but the record we had to break was about half of that. But there's a lot of rules that go into like how they're waving, how long they're waving, what they're waving. Like we had to have them made. And I mean, it was a whole thing. So I am an expert in how to get a Guinness World Record because I got two of them and I led my team through both. So
That's awesome. That is so like so fun.
it is fun, right? But yours is like impressive. So I mean, that's pretty cool. So it's funny because and not just with Hannah, but with all my podcast guests, we talk about what we don't want to talk about, on what we don't want recorded. But this didn't come up, and I did not think we would be hitting on the Dalai Lama. So that's pretty cool. So good for you. So I want to go back to this cold email responses because I think this is really interesting because I delete those immediately. So I want to hear, I love different, I'm a deep thinker. So I love to hear different schools of thought and how you respond now. So explain to everyone in case they're not in sales or, maybe they live under a rock and don't know what a cold email is. But let's start from the beginning. And then I want to hear how you respond to them now, these cold responses. So.
Yes. Okay. So a cold email is when someone you may not have previously met in person, but you realize they could potentially benefit from whatever you are building or selling. You reach out to them and introduce yourself, explain what you're building, what you're selling, that they may be interested, and if they are, to set up a phone call. So I'm sure now that I say it, everyone's like, oh yeah, I got those. Those go straight into the trash or straight into the spam.
Yep.
And for me, I wouldn't say I'm a salesperson by trade. I really enjoy meeting people and I enjoy talking to people. And that's been a lot of fun through starting my own company, is like how many more people I've been able to meet and hear their stories and experiences. But as starting your own company, it's also a lot of, you are the sales team. So I've reached out on email, on LinkedIn, various ways to try and meet people who may be interested or benefit from what Playmaker is offering. And a lot of those go unanswered. And sometimes I'll follow up, or at first I wouldn't follow up really because I was thinking like, oh, like here I am cold outreaching, someone's going to be annoyed by it. And then I thought, okay, like maybe they're annoyed, but then they could always say like, I'm not interested. Or maybe I'll follow up once or twice, because sometimes I realize like people are really busy. Mm-hmm. And a priority for me is not a priority for them. And so someone may see the first message, forget to respond, and I'll follow up once or twice. And then they'll respond and be like, hey, so sorry, completely missed this. Yes, let's set up some time to talk. But one thing I've learned is like, definitely I can't take it personally, because a lot of people have ignored me, or a lot of people have said, no, not interested, without even fully understanding what I've built. And I think a lot of it is just have to be kind of like a seal with water off of its back, where you just keep going at it, because every once in a while when you do follow up, you're going to get a response. Like Tony, you could have potentially not followed up. I would have probably followed up once or twice again. I'm like, no, Tony offered this. Let's see if it's real, or maybe it wasn't. But my take is, don't take anything personally when it comes to cold outreach.
100%. And you took it a step further. You texted me.
Oh, I did.
You did. And I was like, this girl, she is on it. And I loved it because I was like, most people won't do that. You called me and then you texted me right away. And yes. I was like, she means it. And so I want to point out to anyone listening to this. Now, this doesn't mean everyone texts me, but you can, I guess, if you have my phone number.
You're about to get like 100 texts once this comes out.
But to me, the people that I have been the most impressed with are the ones that do what you did. Because there's something, you believe so much in you and what you're doing that you're willing to double down on it. By not only calling me and leaving a voicemail, but then immediately following up with a text. And I have had interns that work for me now that I was like, man, and I've had people that have worked for me historically. These are the most impressive people that have been in my young people. I'm middle-aged, but young people. And I'm like this to my 3 kiddos. I'm like, and they're not kids, they're young adults. Like you're not annoying people. You're just passionate and you believe in yourself. So like you said, water off a back of a duck or a seal or a whale, whatever animal, and keep going. So I just want to point that out.
Thank you. It means a lot. I do think that if I don't believe in myself, why should anyone else? And that comes not just with building the product, but selling the product, with fundraising for the company. If I'm not 100% in and don't believe in what we're doing, like why should anyone else? So I'm like all in. Left my amazing job at my amazing company because there was no other option but to really follow this dream.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go next because I have so much admiration for people like you who say, I'm going to leave this really great job and I'm going to hang my own shingle. So I want to hear that story, especially at a young age when, and I heard you say fundraising. So I want to hear the whole story and I'd love for you to share that, why you chose to leave and how you raise money to make Playmaker happen. And tell us what Playmaker is.
Of course. Okay. So starting with what Playmaker is, it's a software to better automate and build partnerships between brands and sports rights holders. Sports rights holders are leagues, teams, talent. And what a lot of people don't realize is that about over $114 billion are spent annually on sports partnerships by these brands, and that for every dollar spent on a sports partnership, almost an equivalent dollar spent on the marketing to bring it to life. However, that foundational tooling that's supporting this ecosystem is built primarily in Excels and Google Sheets, which leads to a lot of wasted and underutilized like benefits from these deals. Because these deals aren't just the official beer partner of the Kalamazoo Wings, but it also comes with all of these benefits and deliverables such as um, stadium signage, player appearances, newsletter inclusions, social posts, um, in stadium signage, like the list goes on and on. And if everything's being tracked in like an Excel or a Google Sheet, then there's no way that these assets, I refer to them as assets,
Mhm.
are being used in such a way to truly create this holistic messaging to reach fans. Um, and so while at Anheuser-Busch, my first role on that sports team was to read through 28 different professional team contracts, over 50 pages each, and type up each individual deal point and asset in an Excel. And then with this Excel, that was my source of truth. But I was so worried that someone was going to go in and accidentally like make changes and delete it that I would only send out copies. So next thing I know, there are like 12 different Excels, each slightly different than the other, not having no idea which one's the most updated version. And then it also led to issues around communication, collaboration, visibility, which would lead to extras like spend and cost because if we weren't aligned internally or externally on different when signage items were due, then we had to pay extra in overtime and expedited services fees to the creative agency and signage agency to get that signage up in time for the season to begin. So I on the sports team is where I first encountered the different issues that Playmaker is now trying to face, but it's not where I originally had that idea. When I was there, I was still just trying to learn as much as possible, um, do as much as I could to drive value for Anheuser-Busch. And it wasn't really until a few years later that I started thinking to myself, okay, with all of the abilities of AI and LLM, so large language models, what were different roles? So this is like fast forward now, like years later. What were different roles I've had while at Anheuser-Busch where better tech would have made me more productive, would have brought in more revenue, cut costs, or made my life better? And I kept landing on this time on the sports partnerships team where the spend within sports is rapidly growing and it's becoming its own investment class. Like now with PE companies able to invest in like different NFL teams, you see different VC venture capitalists investing in sports teams, everything with NIL, and all of a sudden like that whole bucket opening up.
Mhm.
But and new leagues like TGL and Unrivaled and new brands entering the space to partner. Like it's a rapidly growing industry. Yet this technology versus when I was on the team hadn't actually evolved with this increasing spend. So I started doing some research on my own to say like, okay, like what are the different options out there? was my experience unique at Anheuser-Busch, or do other people have those same issues? So I talked to a few people in my network just to gauge, like, okay, was I the only one using Excel? Turns out it was very prevalent. And I was like, okay, like I think I may be onto something, just like talking to a few people. So in September, I decided to leave Anheuser-Busch with my brilliant and amazing co-founder, Sammy. He is a software engineer by trade. He has a very impressive background, so I can talk all about him. But he and I decided to leave Anheuser-Busch, and sorry, I decided to leave Anheuser-Busch. He left his job, and we decided to focus full time on Playmaker together. And the first thing we did before we built any code was we decided to say, okay, we need to talk to as many people as possible in the sports partnership space to truly understand the issues. So we spoke to 150 people over the course of about 1 month. And thanks to a lot of LinkedIn and people just having a willingness to want to talk about their experience. And during that, we would say, okay, what is your current process? Everything from finding leads to negotiation to execution to recaps. What are you doing now? What works? What doesn't work? What are the software or tech tools you're using? What do you like about them? What don't you like about them? And we just had this conversation on repeat. And then after about 75, we started knowing, okay, this is exactly what people are going to say. We're able to anticipate their needs and issues. And I'm just grabbing my charger. And we started building a product as we went. We started during these conversations also then like showing the initial designs, initial aspects of it until we felt like, okay, it's good enough to start beta testing. And then we decided to launch version 1 of the product about 2 months ago. We have initial customers through the door, and we are extremely thankful for our partners. They are everything to us. And yeah, so now it's 2 months later. We product V1 is launched. We're constantly iterating based on customer feedback, and we're right now raising to support our growth, along with looking to convert some more customers in our funnel.
So how do you raise the capital? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking tech is not inexpensive, and you have a great idea, and you've got this fantastic partner. Not that you have to tell me of all the dollars and cents, but did you have just a money tree in your backyard, or how do you finance, and where can someone go if they're looking? They have an idea, they've got this sapling, they've got this seed, they want to grow it into a tree or a viable business. So whatever you're willing to share, that would be helpful.
Yeah, of course. So this is also the thing about it's a chicken and an egg. Where Sammy and I had so much conviction over what we could build together with Playmaker, but you it's very difficult to get funding for an idea without traction.
Mhm.
However, we can't build a product unless he and I are like full time on it. Like it's not something we could really do like in our spare time or on weekends because also that wouldn't be fair to Playmaker. So he and I decided because he had worked for about he had been at LinkedIn. He had briefly worked at a different AI startup, but we said, okay, we don't think that we're going to be able to get funding for this idea if you and I are not full time. If we have no traction, if it's just like an idea on a pitch deck, it's very difficult to convince someone for funding because it goes back to the if you don't believe in yourself, why should anyone else believe you? And what says I believe in this no matter what more than like going on full time, taking that risk. So he and I decided to take that risk because of our confidence in what we were building or what we wanted to build. And in September, we left no funding. We were just going to bootstrap. And it was very, very scary. Like he and I both had very, very good like corporate jobs. I thought I was going to be at Anheuser-Busch for my career. I loved it there, but I was just had too much conviction over Playmaker to just not give it my all. And in October, though, he and I were accepted into an accelerator residency program called Antler. And this was an 8-week program where the first 6 weeks were pure work alongside partners, work in that community of founders. And during week 7 and 8, you actually pitch for funding. So during the first about 2 months of Playmaker's life, like Sammy and I were bootstrapping. We were as scrappy as possible because we had no budget. We literally had no budget. He and I were obviously foregoing a salary because like there was no money to pay ourselves. And um and then yeah, Antler, we were one of the few companies that they gave the opportunity to invest in. So we received a couple $100,000 from them, which allowed us to make our first hire and a couple of part-time software engineers. And now we're looking to raise money, not because we like need it to survive, but more so we need it to supercharge the growth. So that's, and to work with that, it's meeting different venture capitalists, meeting different potential strategic angels, people who believe in what we've built, our vision, where we're going, enough to want to join this ride with us.
Wow. So much great information in that. And kudos to both of you. Two very, I talk highly courageous people. I talk about courage and how courage is uncomfortable. And, but good things can come out of it. Again, it goes back to what you're talking about, which is conviction. Like you, and what I was saying, you believe in yourself and what you are building so much that you're willing to take that high risk. And I love that word you said, be scrappy.
Yeah.
And
I'd say
and
we're
then,
a very scrappy team.
yeah, there's a lot of great wisdom in what you shared, and I applaud the work you all are doing. And you just left. I mean, this is 9 months ago, basically, Anheuser-Busch, and he left his job. And so, at this point, as we're doing this interview, are you? How would you label where you're at in this stage? Would you say you're successful? Are you on the verge of success? Are you still scrappy? How would you describe where you're at 9 months later?
Yeah. One thing I do want to say though, that success and failure is all relative.
Hmm.
And at the beginning, I think very I'm a very like competitive person. I'm a very like high achieving and want to always find that success. However, when starting a company, there are so many highs and so many lows, even over the course of one day, that I needed to reevaluate to me, what does success mean and what does failure mean, in order to not get caught up in those highs and lows. And to me, failure is there, I define it a few different ways, but one of which is failure is if I stop giving my all, stop giving 110% to Playmaker, and it dies because I wasn't doing everything I could to make sure that it becomes profitable and revenue generating and just leaving our customers without help. Like, I think one of the only ways I'd fail is if I give up.
Yeah.
Is that's kind of how I define failure. Um, and in terms of successful, I would say yes, I'm extremely proud of what we've built. We started this in September, and the first thing we did was we had those 150 customer discovery calls, which is now over 200 customer discovery calls. We went from just an idea to a product. So in like 6 months, we were able to design, build, and ship like a fully functioning product, to the point where we're able to get initial customers who saw what we were building and wanted it as is, and it's only been getting better since they first signed up. And we've been able to make a couple of really great strategic hires. The team is extremely dedicated and motivated, and we see a clear path forward to um, kind of competing against our great competitors and winning. So I would say I feel so proud of everything we've done, and there's only more. There's only, it feels like also we're on the precipice of, with this like initial customer batch and customer feedback, that we're enhancing the product in such a way to make it super scalable, and that will just again hypercharge growth, which is why we're fundraising, so we can get a couple more engineers to help us continue enhancing our current capabilities. But I feel very lucky, and I guess if that's how we're defining success, I'd say I'm the most successful person.
Yeah, I think the word failure is stigmatized in the sense of like, I just think it's bullshit because I don't think anything is a failure. I think you can learn from anything that didn't go the way you want it to go. Anything. I mean, I got let go from a job one time. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I ended up in pro sports and didn't even try. Like I was like, how I don't know. Or I've had, as I talked earlier, I've had two failed marriages. But if I choose to look at that, that I got out of those relationships what I was supposed to.
Yeah.
I could keep going. I broke my shoulder blade once 7 weeks before I was supposed to do an Ironman, and I had to pull out. Was that a failure? No, I just did it 2 years later, and I was just that much grittier because I had been through something challenging. So I completely agree with you that I don't want to fail. I don't want to fail. Yes, you do. I mean, whatever. First off, figure out what your definition of failure is. And then second of all, what's the worst case scenario? I'm
Yeah.
sure you had some idea where you're like, okay, I'm going to make a run at this, and if 12 months from now I'm not where I need to be financially, or did you have some kind of rule, I don't know, rules, I'm using air quotes for those aren't in place to say I'm going to go back to corporate America if A, B, and C doesn't happen?
Yes. I think if my plan was if I'd worked on this for a year and we didn't see any traction in terms of fundraising or customers or product, then that would be a sign that maybe if after a year of giving this my all, if we haven't made any progress or significant progress, then it's time to reevaluate. Is it the idea? Is it the execution? And figure out where to go from there. But I've definitely way past anything that would have made me say, okay, it's not working. Like it is, it is a train. And one thing I do want to say based on kind of what you said, it reminded me that my mom has always told me, Hannah, if you give something 100%, things will work out. They're not necessarily the way you think they will or want them to, but as long as you're giving your 100%, whatever happens is what's meant to be. So I think,
Exactly.
yeah. So I was thinking about that as you were telling about your anecdotes.
Yeah. Great job, Mama Sorkin, if that's
Yeah.
her last name. So let's talk about the women in your life that have been influential and have made you who you are at this point in your life. So who are these women? You mentioned your mom just now, and then of course earlier you had mentioned someone at Anheuser-Busch too. So who are these women?
Of course. So I'd say first and foremost, my mom. She is my biggest supporter, and I'd be nowhere without her. So very thankful, especially mom, if you're listening to this, thank you. Then I would say I'm so incredibly inspired by my friends. So I look at them and they inspire me every day, each in their own right, in their own industry, have built amazing careers, and seeing their ambition and their motivation and just being part of that is it's very inspiring to me. And I think one thing that I love about my friend group is that we all really support each other wholeheartedly, where we feel each other's wins, we feel each other's losses. And having such a supportive and inspiring group of women who I always have just like in my group text and see all the time, it's just really, really lovely. And I feel very lucky to have them in my life. In terms of like women in my professional career, I mentioned Laura, who took a chance on me to join her team on that the revenue management sales strategy group coming out of sports, where I didn't have any of the technical hard skills needed to do that job, but she saw in me someone who had this thirst for knowledge, willingness to learn, knew that I'd give everything I could to be able to get to a point where I would be an expert in whatever I did. And so I very much appreciate that she took a chance on me and was an extremely good mentor and coach. And then from what I've been going through, I mentioned the Antler residency that I took part of. The different principals and partners have been so supportive. And then from a woman perspective, one of the partners, Roslyn, is she's amazing. She is so smart and extremely supportive, and she's always made me know from like day one that she has my back and has helped me navigate becoming a founder so well. So I'm very thankful for Roslyn.
Awesome. What a great group of women. I want to circle back. What's your mom's name?
And Marie.
Anne Marie, hey, you raised a great one. You should be very proud. So, and I hope she does listen to this. I'm sure she will. And it's always good as a mom to hear a public thank you. So, I'm going to have my kids listen to this, and they actually have all been on the podcast too. So, but it's just great as our kids come of age and find their own way, and just to hear what impact your mom has had. And we talked off air about me losing my mom a couple months ago, and what impact she had on who I am today too. So it's great that you can share that with the world. So, okay. If people want to learn more about Playmaker, or they're just fascinated by the fact that you were the last line of defense for the Dalai Lama, where can they find you, Hannah?
Of course. So you can find me on LinkedIn, where it's just Hannah with an H at the end, Sorkin. You'll see it on the podcast name. So my name is the same spelled on LinkedIn. And then my email, if you want to email me, it's just Hannah at playmaker-software.com. Okay. And that's also the domain of our website is playmaker-software.com. And there you can also submit a form to connect. But please, looking forward to connecting with anyone and everyone on LinkedIn. Even if you're interested in thinking Playmaker may benefit your business, or if you're interested in learning more about our current raise, or if you just want to chat and tell me about your experience, maybe in sports partnerships or partnerships in general, or anything that resonated with you today, I would love to connect with anyone.
Yeah, and as we close out, I'd love for you to fill in the three dots. And I'll explain this real quick because Women In, I initially was launching it with the idea of just talking to women in sports. And I said, no, not enough. I need to broaden this out because we as women have multiple identities, and I wanted men on my podcast too because men came from women, and there are a lot of men that support women, and the word men is in women, so it makes sense. So how would you fill in those three dots? Women in ... What comes to mind?
The ones that come to mind are like woman in tech, woman in sports, woman in entrepreneurship. Those are the three main ones.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to share your story, and for reaching out to me unapologetically, and because you believe so much in what you're doing and who you are, and I applaud that. So I'm taking these women and I say, come in the elevator with me. We're going up to break whatever glass ceiling you're looking to break.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the platform today to tell my story and talk about Playmaker, and for making that a initial offer, and also for everything you've done with the National Sports Forum.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really proud of that. And I'm going to just keep doing it because I want to see more and more women there. And I want to see more and more women achieve their goals in business and entrepreneurship and sports and public speaking, whatever they want to do. I don't care. I'm here to help and be a loud advocate. So, and that comes with some arrows, but it also comes with a lot of great support as well. So I appreciate it. I am not hard to find, so if people want to connect with me, I'm on social media at Facebook and LinkedIn at Tony Lentini Will, on Instagram at I'm Tony Will. I only do three social media platforms. I'm not on TikTok or X, but maybe one day, who knows. And if you're looking for the hockey side of my life, you can go to kwings.com. If you're looking for lifestyle coaching or professional development coaching, you can find me at mindfulnesselevated.com or tonywillcoaching.com. Until next time, thanks, Hannah.
Thank you, Tony.